What's up, agency owners? Jason Swenk here, and I have another amazing guest. We're going to talk about how she's grown her agency. And should you, there's always been this debate if you should build your personal brand or focus more on branding your agency. Today, we're going to talk about that and how they built multiple offices all over the world. So let's go ahead and get into the show. Hey, Annie, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so tell us who you are and what do you do?
Sure. So, my name is Annie Pace Scranton, and I run a PR agency called Pace Public Relations. We are based in New York, but we have offices and clients around the country and globally. And we primarily focus on helping our clients get great media attention and media placements so that way they can highlight the good work that they're doing.
Awesome. And tell us, how did you get started in creating an agency?
It all started when I lost my job at CNBC. I was a producer there, and the show I was working on got canceled. And I found myself at the age of 28 without a job, without much savings. So I did what any young girl would do. I called my mom crying and said, "What am I going to do now?" And then I really pulled myself together and sent an email out to everyone in my network saying, I need a job. Let me know if you hear of anything. And a publicist who I had worked with frequently booking his clients on CNBC said to me, I don't think you've had any formal PR training, but if you can help me get media for my current client, I'll pay you. And it came very naturally and easily to me. I texted my friend in the newsroom and she was like, "Oh, this guy looks great. Can he come on the show tomorrow?" And that was kind of my light bulb moment where I realized my quote unquote special currency was that I had worked at many different news outlets and just knew a lot of really influential and important producers and reporters and would be able to help brands and companies and CEOs and founders get that access to the media that they were wanting to have.
So the important question is, how much did you charge them, or how much did you get paid for that first gig?
Not very much at all. And honestly, I feel like I undercharged for many, many years, way too long than I should have. I think it's probably a common issue that startups and founders have. At the time, I had accepted a full time job at another news network, so I was doing this on the side. So it wasn't quite as important to make exactly as much money as I needed to because I obviously had that cushion and that security. But quickly it morphed into a monthly retainer model, which is what most PR agencies do. When I first started out, I think I charged like $1,000 a month, and now our retainers can, normally are around 10,000 a month. But I'm 12 years in business, so that's kind of been the trajectory of our growth.
What, how long did it take you from doing this on the side to say, all right, I'm quitting this other position and I'm going to do this full time? And then what were the steps that you took?
It took about a year and a half, and I realized when I was making equal amount of money from doing it on the side as I was from my full-time job that I said, "You know what? It's now or never. I'm 30 years old. I do have a little bit of a safety net, a cushion, of a little bit of money in the bank. Let me just take a risk." So after I resigned, I just kind of crowdsourced everybody I knew. I was fortunate because working in TV news and booking guests, I just knew a ton of people. And so I called up an attorney I was close with and I said, I'm going to do this full time. Like, what do I do? And he said, well, you need to incorporate. And I said, well, what does that mean? And so he asked me a bunch of questions and said, all right, you should be an S corp. I'll file it for you. I paid him and he did it. I found through a friend a web designer who put together a very basic website for me. And I stopped using my Gmail and, I got like just an app Pays Public Relations email address. Um, for PR, it's a service industry. So there's not actually a ton of steps that you need to put in place before you start. I wasn't manufacturing a product. I didn't have to answer to like investors or anything like that. All I needed was my laptop, my phone, and Wi-Fi, and I was good to do my job. Um, I did learn the hard way about finding a good accountant because I didn't really realize how much money I was going to need to put aside for taxes because I had always been a W-2 and that money had been just taken out of my paycheck for me. So that would be one big piece of advice for people who are starting out on their own is get a good accountant and just put aside as much money as you can because it's a rough reality when that first tax bill comes.
Yeah. What about when you started hiring people, right? I find, especially with many agency owners that start by accident, kind of like you did, of going, all right, everything is me, but now I need to kind of step it up. How, who did you hire? Not particularly a name, but like what position? And then how did you start training them in order to do the things that you were doing?
Yeah. Um, I realized I needed my first employee when I just had way too much work to handle. And also when I realized I was doing more of the like low level admin things and it was taking up so much of my time. And I just realized, okay, well, my time should be spent getting new business, working on fine tuning my relationships with the media, key things that only I could do given the position that I was in. So I found somebody who had a background in media who was looking where I was just at a party, talking to a mutual friend and got introduced to this guy and just vibed with him, liked him right away. And the way that I trained him was by literally working side by side with him in a very small office and just talking through every single thing that was going on. He was a quick learner. He was very responsible, and it was one of the best decisions I ever made because, there is that anxiety of like, oh God, okay, now I have someone on payroll. I have to make sure I have enough money to pay them. Um, but I just kind of said, you know what, if I don't try it, what's the alternative? I can't work literally 24 hours a day. And I think every business owner, agency owner gets to that point. But it really can be a good decision. You just have to have that like confidence in yourself that you can do it.
So let's get into the kind of the meat of the episode of what I teased people in, because there's always a debate I see in my mastermind groups or agency owners that we'll chat with. And I'll look at they're not marketing themselves. They're not building their brand. And this is what I did at our agency when we had the first agency is like I put all my personal effort into marketing the agency and none into marketing myself or creating any content. So what are your guys' feelings around that?
I think that you need to do both. But for the type of agency that I have and what I can speak to is that 75% of it is wrapped up in me just because I started it. And for so long, it was just me or like one or two staff members. So when people think of Annie Scranton, I think it's synonymous with Pace Public Relations just because of how entrenched my work is in my day-to-day life. But I think now more than ever, people, Americans, consumers want to work with companies or brands that they believe in but that they can attach to a specific person. It's not just like, oh, I love Nike, so let me follow Nike on social media. It's like, no, like what are your favorite athletes or celebrities that are wearing those brands? Or when there's a really cool company or product, like we worked with Away Luggage for a long time. People want to follow Jen, the co-founder, because it's aspirational in a way too. And you want to see them succeed. You want to see their journey and their career path. So I think doing the branding for yourself as an agency owner or C-suite executive is extremely important. And I think like reels people in a way that's different when you're only promoting a brand because it's not as personal.
I agree with that. Now, some people may be listening, and I'll ask you this question: How would, since you're doing so much personal branding, when a client comes to your agency, are you doing everything for them?
No. I mean, I have
Good.
a
That's what everybody thinks when they start branding themselves. They literally think, well, if I brand myself, my agency's not worth anything. And then I have to do everything because when someone comes in, you know, they want you.
Well, so that's still true, but to a much lesser degree now. I mean, I'm 12 years in business, and so I'm in a much different place than when I was, working out of my studio apartment, when I was 28 years old. But if you're gonna start an agency or any business, yeah, like for the first few years, yeah, you're gonna be doing most of it yourself, and you have to be okay with that. And perhaps you're gonna be one of those people that can scale up super, super fast, but it may take longer. So if you don't love what you're doing and you don't want to do the work, then I would suggest doing something else in your career. Um, but I think there is absolutely a path forward if you hire really good, really smart people to work with you and you train them. Then you don't have to do everything yourself, and you shouldn't have to. I think that's just such a misconception. Everybody needs to evolve in their career and get to a place where they're growing and learning new things and doing different things. And that's the way that you provide value to your clients and to your agency.
What are some examples of doing, building your personal brand that has worked really well for you?
I spend a lot of time posting and interacting on LinkedIn, and I can't speak enough about that platform. I have gotten not infinite, but a lot of tons of new business leads from LinkedIn, where I think if we're talking about personal branding, it's not just saying, I got this new client or check out this awesome thing about my business, but it's talking about actually a news story that's happening. And then I'll write a short post where I position myself as a subject matter expert or thought leader, as it relates to the news. And I believe that's a very way that you could be consistent about continually putting your personal branding and your messaging out there. I also just have had the fortune of doing different webinars or seminars or speaking engagements where I actually talk about personal branding. And I talk about it a lot with our clients. It's one of the first things I'll probably ask them is like, how do you describe yourself? If I'm going to set you up with a producer or reporter, how do you tell them who you are in 30 seconds? And I try to just live that out in my day-to-day life by all forms of communication, whether it's with a client or a prospective client or, just people who are in the same industry as myself.
On positioning, because I feel that's really important for everything, kind of the elevator pitch, rather than saying, oh, I always get so frustrated when I look at someone's LinkedIn profile or someone talks to me and they just go, I'm an agency owner. I'm like, what does that mean? Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean
What is
anything.
an agency? Tell
Yeah,
me.
exactly. So, what is the best way to position your personal brand, like in that 20-second, you know, that you
Yeah.
have, that you've seen?
Well, first, if it takes you longer than 20 seconds to describe who you are and what you do, you need to actually sit down and set aside some time and figure out what your elevator pitch is, what your personal brand is, and how you can say that concisely. And then I think something that I found really valuable is, you got to always think about what is in it for the other person who you're talking to and who you're listening to. People are busy. We have a million and one distractions. We have no attention span anymore. So nobody wants to hear you drone on and on about what you do. But if you can say to them, here's what I do and here's how it can help you. Okay, well, now you've got my attention a little bit. Okay, you can help my business grow. You can help me get new clients. You can make my workflow processes easier, whatever. So always think about kind of what's the ROI for the other person that you're talking about. And I think that that will help your messaging immensely.
What's the worst pitch you've ever heard?
Well, I can tell you one. When I was producing, I worked at HLN, which is CNN's sister network. I worked for an anchor named Jane Velez Mitchell. She, if you watched her show, she was a nightly show. She was on before Nancy Grace, so we called her Nancy Grace Light. She always talked about crime, like missing girls, that kind of thing. It was a heavy crime news show. If you knew Jane and you looked her up for 1 second on the internet, you would know that she was three things: a vegan, a recovering alcoholic, and a lesbian. And that's like Jane. I got a pitch in my inbox from somebody who said, "Hey, Annie, I'm working with this new tequila company, and we would love to come on and do like a live taste test with Jane on the air, and she could try the different tequila and blah, blah, blah." And I just wrote this person back and I was like, this pitch is wrong on so many levels. We're a new show, we focus on crime. And Jane is like has been sober for like 30 years, and so they apologized and said, I'm so sorry. You were on a big email blast that we did, and we didn't mean for it to come in your inbox. But that just totally discredited that person to me, and just kind of put her on my like do not ever interact with file. So when you're pitching, know who you're pitching, take 5 minutes to research, and that can go a long way.
They should have sent you they should have sent you guys a steak as an apology.
Yeah. Then she would have really been pissed off. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's unbelievable how many times people don't research ahead of time. And it drives me absolutely nuts.
There's just no excuse now. There's this thing called the internet. Everybody's on social media. Even, if you're pitching the media, reporters are people too. They have Instagram accounts. They're on LinkedIn. They're on Twitter. And it just will. It's not only like researching. It's not only just the researching. It's like gathering information and then being informed, because it will help you put together an email that will just be so much more effective. And it doesn't always also need to be transactional. I'm emailing you so I can get X. Think about just reaching out to people in the spirit of collaboration, and just developing a relationship. And telling somebody, I really enjoyed reading your last few pieces, and here's why. That's going to go a long way. And then when there is a moment where you have a pitch, that you want to get in front of them with, hopefully they'll remember, that you've been in touch with them before in a genuine way.
Last question I'm curious about. As we're recording this, it's, what is it, March? March in
Yeah.
22. I can't even remember anymore. It just seems like everything blurred when the virus came out. But a lot of people I've seen started kind of going virtual, and you have offices all over. Why do you have offices all over? And why not be virtual? I always love to hear everybody's thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, the media is all over, and that's what we focus on. So I think having a footprint in key cities is advantageous for that reason. We were virtual for the better part of these past 2 years, for obvious reasons, but PR is a collaborative, creative industry, and there are ideas and moments sparked when you're in an office together or at the proverbial water cooler that just cannot be replicated over Zoom, or in a virtual setting. For us, we could work virtually for forever, but I don't want that. I've gotten some of my best relationships and friendships from being in person and going with a client to an interview, or attending a media event, or going to this networking conference or whatever. So I think there's just those, and also it just helps you remember how to interact with people. We already don't know how to talk to each other. So if we were virtual all the time, you would lose a lot of that. And my job is to communicate all day long. So that's why.
Very good. Yeah, I always love to, because I see so many people getting rid of their offices and going virtual. But I totally agree with you. I remember when I ran Solar Velocity, there are so many invaluable moments in the office, whether it be the office pranks that we would pull. Like they hung my desk from the ceiling once or gave me a little school desk, and I'm a big guy. I do not fit in a school desk. So, it's all kinds of those little things that you miss that just make that culture that much better. So how do you,
Well,
yeah, go on.
I was just going to say too, like, now we're in this moment in time where it's really hard to hire and retain talent. And so part of what people makes people happy about their job, sure, is the work that they're doing, but it's also the people. And you just lose that when you're only talking to someone on Slack, or Zoom all day long. So I think that's another component to it as well.
Awesome. Well, Andy, this has all been amazing. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you think would benefit the listeners listening in?
No, this is great. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. What's the website people can go and check out the agency?
Sure. It's pacepublicrelations.com. So PACE public relations, all spelled out.com.
Awesome. Well, Annie, thanks so much for coming on the show. And if you guys enjoyed this episode and you want to be around amazing agency owners that might be able to see the things you're not able to see and be able to help guide you and show you how you can scale your agency faster, create more freedom in your agency so you're not working all the time and you're able to do the things that you've always wanted to do, I'd love to invite all of you to go to digitalagencyelite.com and request an invite. And if we think you'll be great for the mastermind, we'll have a chat. So do that now. Go to digitalagencyelite.com. And until next time, have a swank day.